education development and initiative. Singapore has been highly regarded, amongst others, that they are top of the world, in terms of education system and education reform as well. And we are very pleased to have Mr. Leslie Toh. He used to be a biology teacher at the for grade 11 and 12 in Singapore school, and also he used to be a research fellow at the Nanyang Technological University. And at the moment, he's Senior Education Support Officer at the Ministry of Education in Singapore. So without further ado, so please join me welcoming Mr. Leslie Toh. ขอเสียงปรบมือด้วยค่ะ So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Good morning and welcome to the show and share session on national education issues. Once again, I'm Leslie from the Ministry of Education, Singapore. We're very honored to be invited to the first PMCA forum, and for this morning presentation, I'll be sharing on a holistic approach to education as well as school readiness. Okay, we hope that through this presentation, you have better insights into the Singapore education system. Can you hear me at the back? Okay, here's a brief outline of the presentation this morning. I'll begin with an overview of the education system and looking at its role and how it has evolved over the years. And thereafter, I will share with you briefly the philosophy that undergirds this education system and also what outcomes we'd like to see in our students. The actual presentation will premise on two areas, which is that of holistic approach to education as well as school readiness. So this forms the outline of my presentation for this morning. From the earlier years, the Singapore education system has to juggle or balance two key truths. As people are only resource, the key role of Singapore, the key role of the education system, it's really to support the economy. But at the same time, we also need to fulfill the aspirations of our children. And to support the economy, there is actually close coordination between the economy as well as the manpower and education ministries. And the education institution also has close link with the industry partners through adjunct teaching positions, as well as inviting industry partners on board the academic advisory boards. But we also realize that we also need to fulfill the aspirations of our children, and we do this by providing them with multiple pathways of education to ensure their success, and also at the same time provide customized programs to realize their greatest potential. So from the role, we now look at how the education system has actually evolved from the earlier years. And for this, I shall briefly share with you the historical tracing of the Singapore education system. In the earlier, Singapore gained self-government from the British in 1959, and ever since then, the education policies have evolved tremendously, and essentially the changes to the education system can broadly be categorized into four phases. So the first phase, which is that of survivor-driven. Okay, what it means here is that in the early years, the education system was very much influenced by survivor as well as nation building, and therefore the focus of the education system then was very much on mass education to produce or to develop skilled labor force to drive industrialization. In the late 70s, we see high enrollments as also high dropout rates. So the focus was to shift from that of survivor to that of efficiency, where we want to ensure more students progress through the system, okay, so as to cater to the needs of the industries back then, okay, in the 70s. In the 90s, the economy of Singapore transited to that of a knowledge-based one, and we sought to develop in students a broader base kind of skill set. And this skill set include things like critical thinking as well as creativity. And come 2012, we see transition to that of the student-centric, values-driven phase of education, where we no longer want to just impart knowledge and skills to students, but also at the same time develop the correct skills, character, as well as values to the students. So in this way, our children would be able, to face the world that is increasingly volatile and also ever-changing. So now with this broad overview of the education system, examining its role and also how it's evolved over the years, let's now proceed to that of the philosophy that undergirds this education system. In Singapore, we believe that education is about nurturing the whole child. This means developing not only from a cognitive perspective, but also physically, morally, socially, as well as aesthetically. And through such holistic nurturing of the child, we would like to see the child becoming more caring and responsible towards his family, towards his or her family, as well as community. At the same time, understand his or her role for the future of Singapore. When we talk about nurturing the whole child, it is important for teachers or educators to also have a common set of beliefs about learner and his or her learning. So the following are the beliefs that we would like educators to possess back in Singapore. We still start off with the first belief, which is every child has an intrinsic worth. What this means is that every child is a person in his or her rights, with his own thoughts and beliefs. And it takes a lot of patience and perseverance to nurture the whole child. And just like a sapling, you need a lot of scaffolding and at the same time give the child ample space for growth and development. Every child is unique in that he has his own learning abilities and capacities and also pace of growing. And just like what I said about scaffolding, the child also needs to be guided so as to realize his strength and also achieve his goals. The scaffolding does not stop just at guidance provision, but also requires a provision of orderliness, discipline, care, and encouragement. But there must be a fine balance or good balance between orderliness and discipline, as well as care and encouragement, because without a balance, there would not be a conducive environment for learning and for growth to take place. A child learning should also be developmentally appropriate. What it means here is that there is a suitable age for what the child is to be taught, how it is taught, and how much to teach. So with all this consideration put in place, then of course the child will develop much confidence and motivation for his or her learning. So with the nurturing of the whole child, what kind of outcomes would we like to see in our students? We have the desired outcomes of educations, and these are the attributes that we would like to see in our students after he or she has graduated from formal education. So these are the attributes that will, in a way, form a common purpose for all educators of Singapore. And also at the same time, it is like a benchmark of which the system can ascertain for itself to see how well we have done as a system in educating the younger generation. So the person who is schooled in Singapore education system would have the following desired outcomes of education. He is a confident learner or individual where he has the capacity to discern right from wrong, think independently and critically, and also has good communication and interpersonal skills. He takes responsibility for his own learning, and also at the same time constantly reflecting on his during the learning journey. Okay, and of course, we also like the child or the individual to be informed of the global issues, at the same time stay rooted to the nation or Singapore. Okay, be have civic consciousness, at the same time take interest in helping others around him. And finally, we would like the individual to be an active team player, always taking initiative, innovative, and strive for excellence. So these four attributes together form the desired outcomes of education that all educators would aspire our students after the receipt of formal education to possess. Okay? So, we seek to achieve our desired outcomes of education through our national curriculum. And as such, the national curriculum would need to be sound and rigorous. And national curriculum is premised on the following principles, and they are strong fundamentals, 2, future learning, 3, engaged learning, and finally, holistic education. So let me now elaborate on each of them in my subsequent slides. But taken collectively, all these principles is to actually provide students with the opportunity to receive holistic education, and it falls back to our primary philosophy, which is that of nurturing the whole child. So first principle, strong fundamentals. So students' literacy and numeracy could be acquired from the core knowledge and skills from the various subject disciplines. But we do not just look at literacy and numeracy, but we also pay much importance to character as well as citizenship education, which allow us to nurture students to becoming responsible, actively contributing individuals who are rooted not only to a nation, but undergirded by sound values, to navigate the globalized world. So the overall emphasis on literacy, numeracy, values education, as well as social emotional learning would help us to develop students well for work as well as life beyond school. So now that we've seen the first principle, which is that of strong fundamentals, we move on to a second principle, which is that of future learning. And for this, we would like to focus on the development of the 21st century competencies in our students. This is a framework of the 21st century competencies, and you can see is there are actually essentially 4 layers to this framework. We look at the first layer, which is the central piece, the core values. The core values at the center are as follows. We have respect, responsibility, resilience, integrity, care, and harmony. Why do we have core values in the middle? Because we believe that core values are underpinned, undergirds the knowledge and skills that a student should have, and with these core values in place, you determine one's character and also one's attitude and actions as well as belief system. That's why they form the core of the framework. In the next layer, we have the social emotional competencies, of which we identify 5 competencies which are essential in preparing our students for their future endeavors. And they are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management, as well as responsible decision-making. These skills are necessary for children to recognize and manage their own emotions, make responsible decisions, handle challenging situations effectively, develop care and concern for others, and finally, establish positive relationship with others. The next layer would be that of the 21st century competencies that we would like to see in our students. And they are as follows: civic literacy, global mindedness, and cross-cultural skills. What it means here is that I think Singapore society itself is getting cosmopolitan, okay? And also at the same time, our younger generations are moving out of Singapore to work. And it's important for them to understand other people's culture and be able to be receptive to the different kind of viewpoints, okay? And but having that global awareness and cross-cultural skills, it is also important for them to stay rooted to the nation and take pride in being a Singaporean. The next one would be that of critical and inventive thinking. Okay, I think as a learned person, okay, it's important for them to be able to access or make informed decision after screening through all the necessary information and be critical of the things that they have on hand. At the same time, we also encourage our students to take a bold step and think out of the box and accept challenges and not be afraid of failures. Okay? And the third aspect, or the third competency that we like to see in students or instill in students, is that of communication, collaboration, and information skills. So I think in this day and age where information is just a click away, information can be accessed easily, so students would need to have a discerning capacity to discern the right from wrong, okay, and the quality of the information they have on hand. So they need to have those information skills. At the same time, in future workplace, there's a lot of collaboration, so it's important for them to also at the same time possess the necessary skills to work with others, not only with themselves, and also be able to communicate their ideas clearly, okay, to others. So together, these competencies taken together will enable our young to tap into rich opportunities in the new digital age while remaining rooted to their values and to Singapore. And finally, we have the 4 desired outcomes of education are found in the outermost layer. And we would like the development of 21st century competencies to help. So through this development, okay, or the development of the 21st century competencies will help our students to embody these desired outcomes of education. And as previously mentioned, these are the attributes that we would like our students to have at the end of their formal education. So in developing the 21st century competencies in our children or our students, we have actually incorporated into the various subject disciplines. And to enable them to acquire such competencies, we also design rich learning experiences within the subject disciplines and also coupled with the necessary assessment, okay, to support the development of the 21st century competencies development. So we have seen 2 out of 4 principles so far. The first being the strong fundamentals, and next we have just covered on future learning. We now move on to the third principle, which is that of engaged learning. So to deliver curriculum in a more student-centric. Sorry, just now I didn't click on the slides, okay? Probably if you want to take a moment to read what I have said earlier. So these are things I mentioned earlier that 21st century competencies have been incorporated into various subject disciplines. And to allow students to acquire these competencies, we have ensured, or we have designed experiences within the various subject disciplines for the acquisition of these competencies. At the same time, we also use assessment to ascertain or to inform the students how much of the competencies they have acquired. So the next principle is that of engaged learning. To deliver the curriculum in more student-centric ways, we invest heavily on resources as well as professional development to ensure that teachers are well prepared, as well as well trained in pedagogy and assessment that are aligned to the curricular outcomes and to better meet the needs of diverse groups of students. We leveraged on applied learning as a pedagogical approach to equip students with skills to engage in the practical application of knowledge to address real-world problems. We further use technology to have more student-centric delivery of the curriculum, and technology is also leveraged to help students deepen their subject mastery and further develop our students in areas of self-directed learning and also collaborative learning. Again, aligns to the desired outcomes of education and also elements of the 21st century competencies. But at times, when we talk about students, there are some group of students that might be lagging behind and they need some form of support, okay, because of certain specific needs, whether it's learning needs or special needs, okay, then we have the learning support programs in areas of English and math, okay. And we also designed multiple education pathway to suit different learning styles. And for both learning support as well as designing of the multiple education pathways, I will elaborate further in my latest presentation when I talk about school readiness. So the last principle is that of the holistic education. The final principle guiding our curriculum is that of holistic education. We pay equal emphasis to both academic as well as non-academic learning. Let's take a look at how holistic education is being done through the total curriculum in schools. So this slide shows the students' total curriculum. And when we talk about total curriculum, we refer to the various subject disciplines, like what is seen here in this slide here. These are the academic or the disciplines, and we cover things like languages, mathematics, sciences, humanities, physical education, art, and music. And total curriculum does not just involve the academic subjects, but also involve the non-academic subjects as well, including things like the character and citizenship education, and core curricular activities, and also, finally, the school-based programs that are different across different schools, depending on their emphasis. And together, the total curriculum refers to the total experience that student has or experience during their schooling days. So we try to instill in students the 21st century competencies through the various curricular exposure, and with acquisition of the 21st century competencies, we hope students will be able to embody the desired outcomes of education, which is to be a confident person, self-directed learner, concerned citizen, as well as an active contributor. In my previous sharing on the principle of strong fundamentals and engaged learning, I shared much on students' academic development. But holistic education does not merely involve the academic development, but also involve the need to look into non-academic development as well. And from this slide, we can see the involvement of two aspects of non-academic development, which is that of the character and citizenship education, as well as the core curricular activities. And of course, depending on the school programs, okay, some school programs also cater for the non-academic development. So the character and citizenship education have been shared when I shared on the principle of strong fundamentals. So let's now focus on the core curricular activities. The core curricular activities are an integral part of a well-rounded education. They provide authentic platforms for character and leadership development, as well as inculcation of values and development of social, emotional, as well as the 21st century competencies. And they help nurture in students qualities such as resilience, tenacity, confidence, and perseverance, which prepare them to adapt and strive in a rapidly changing world. So there is a wide spectrum of exciting core curricular activities that students can choose from, and they encompass things like physical sports, uniform groups, visual and performing arts, to clubs and societies. Therefore, the core curricular activities, together with character and citizenship education, nurture students to becoming responsible and active citizens rooted to the nation or to Singapore and guided by strong values or sound values to navigate the globalized world. So taken collectively, when we talk about the principle of holistic education, we seek to provide students with an education that extends beyond academic learning to also developing them morally, socially, physically, as well as aesthetically. So as much as we have infused holistic education into total learning, it is important to also, in a way, make changes to the kind of reporting or the kind of reporting we have to our to the student parents. Okay, so what I'm showing here, which is in line with what I mentioned about holistic education, is that now schools actually issue report books in the form of what we term as a holistic development profile. And under the holistic development profile, schools report beyond academic performance to include student development domains like student personal qualities, which are very much decided by the schools and often align to the school values. Another interesting point to note in relation to this kind of holistic reporting is that schools are also involving students in communicating the learning to the parents through what we term as the parent-child-teacher conferencing. And during the conferencing session, students share with the parents what they have learned and achieved, the learning process and reflection, as well as their learning goals. They can also discuss with the teachers and parents how they could better support, how they could better be supported, okay, be better supported in their learning and also their development. So just recap, okay, we have what we have seen earlier is actually the 4 principles that undergirds the design of the national curriculum. The first being that of strong fundamentals. Then we move on to that of future learning, engaged learning, and the last one is holistic education. So 4 principles underline the overall design of our national curriculum. So moving on. Children enter our schools with different starting points, abilities, and learning needs. Disadvantaged children usually come from homes or lower economic status and usually non-English speaking. Okay, and therefore they usually come to schools with lower literacy and numeracy skills. So we aspire to build an inclusive system that provides opportunity for all to succeed. Education is a critical leveler that helps to close societal gaps and also promote social mobility. Our schools help these students to acquire the necessary knowledge and skills so that they are prepared, they are work ready and employable once they step out of the school system. So for the next presentation on school readiness, I'd like to share how Singapore as a system ensures school readiness in our students, especially the academically weaker students, with the provision of learning support, structures and programs at each level of their academic pursuit. But before we do so, okay, let's take a look at how we prepare students at the earlier years. The early years are important for students' holistic development, and a quality preschool education would be necessary to build a strong foundation for the future learning of the children. And therefore, MOE kindergartens aim to provide quality preschool for all Singaporeans and also pilot teaching and learning resources and good practices to be shared with the preschool sector. And before I move on to the learning support structures and programs for students at each academic level, I think it is also good to visit the curriculum frameworks at the primary, secondary, and pre-university levels. The primary school education is designed to give students a strong foundation and focuses on three main areas. One is that of the subject disciplines, which is the outermost ring, followed by character development, which is the core, the central ring, okay, and also knowledge skills, the middle ring. So three areas, okay, subject disciplines, character development, as well as knowledge skills. And through this different aspect, there is development of language and numeracy skills, building of character, and nurturing sound values and good habits of learning. So subject disciplines, let's look at the outermost ring, subject disciplines. Subject disciplines comprise subject areas such as languages, the humanities and the arts, mathematics and the sciences. This ensures that our students would have strong fundamentals across these different subject domains. With subject-based banding, English language, mother tongue, math and science will be taught at appropriate level at both upper primary, which is primary 5 and primary 6, according to the ability of the student. We next look at knowledge skills, which is the middle ring. The knowledge skills focus on developing students' thinking, process, and communication skills, and all these skills are essential for learning. And these skills are usually taught through various subject disciplines and culminates in a certain project work. And through project work, they would be able to utilize all these acquired knowledge skills, work together with others, and clearly demonstrate what all these skills are about. Character development, which is the core, the innermost ring, is facilitated through daily teacher-student interaction, as well as in programs in the non-academic curriculum. For instance, you have the core curricular activities, the character and citizenship education, social emotional learning, national education, and physical education. And taken together, such character development pursuits focus on instilling sound values in a child to take him through life as a responsible adult. Let's now take a look at the secondary and pre-university. Okay, so probably for the better understanding of the friends or audience here, so primary school actually involved what we term as a grade 1 to grade 6, or the primary 1 to primary 6. Okay, and secondary level refers to secondary 1 to secondary 4 or 5. Okay, usually what we term as a grade 7 to 10. Okay, pre-university are the preparatory education pathway for those who like to move on to that of university. Of course, there are other pathways leading to university as well, but this is one of the way going through pre-university, which is what is equivalent of the grade 11 and 12. Okay. So for secondary and pre-university curriculum, students will also pursue subjects in the areas of languages, humanities, the arts, mathematics, as well as sciences. But of course, at these levels of secondary and pre-university, students will go into more depth of learning. And besides the content-based subjects, students will be equipped with both the knowledge and life skills to help them maneuver life challenges successfully and strive in a fast-changing world. Okay, so the framework is essentially the same, okay, in terms of the focus of the subject disciplines and also, okay, the knowledge skills and the life skills, but they progress on, okay, at different levels, and we go on to different depths of coverage for the different levels. So now that we have a good overview of the curriculum frameworks at the primary, secondary, and pre-university levels, let us now examine the different learning support structure and programs for each academic level. We first look at the primary level. At primary level, we provide students with customized and differentiated learning experiences so as to realize the students' greatest potential. Let me elaborate further in the next slide. At primary level, we see the need to lay strong foundations in numeracy and literacy. At primary 4 and 5, our leveling up efforts target at early identification and interventions in building up the foundations in numeracy and literacy. And prior to intervention, diagnostic assessments are conducted for each student to identify specific skill deficits so that intervention is targeted and appropriate goals can be set for these students. Thereafter, pull-out support or after-school remediation programs are administered. So what are some of these programs? Like what I mentioned earlier, we have the Learning Support Program for English Language and Mathematics, and these are specialized early intervention programs that support students who, upon entering primary 1, okay, or your grade 1, with weak literacy and numeracy. And if they continue to be weak beyond primary 2, okay, they would also continue to get additional support, and these programs are all administered by qualified teachers trained by the Ministry of Education Singapore. At the upper primary levels, that means the primary 5 and primary 6, more customized curriculum are provided for students through what we term as subject-based banding to help each child realize his potential based on his interests and also his strength. So for instance, if a child is weak in English language and mathematics, he can choose to take English, language and mathematics at the foundation level while taking mother tongue, language and science at the standard level. So this kind of differentiation allows students to learn or to acquire knowledge at his or her own strength and pace. So beside all this differentiation in approaches or curricular design, what other kind of support do we get from the Ministry of Education? Additional manpower given to schools to better support the different leveling up programs in literacy and numeracy. There are also development of learning resources to help support the teaching of these students who are struggling academically, such as a manipulative use in the learning support classes for mathematics. Trainings and mentoring are also provided for teachers through the HQ offices or the ministry offices and specialists so as to help to level up in supporting these students. The training also extends to the allied educators. So at the end of the 6 years of primary school education, students will take a national examination, what we term as the Primary School Leaving Examination, or PSLE in short. So depending on the student's primary school leaving examination results, a student will be placed in different courses. We have the express course, including the integrated program in some secondary schools, the normal academic course, or the normal technical course. I will elaborate further on these courses in my later slides. So while a student may initially be placed in a particular course, whether it's an normal academic course or the normal technical course, but based on his ability to cope with a different learning pace and style, there are opportunities for this student to make a lateral transfer midway to appropriate course, one that can really bring out the best in the child. Similar to the primary school peers, there's also subject-based banding in secondary school to allow for flexibility of students from different courses to take up a higher course subjects based on his aptitude in the particular subject. So for instance, a normal technical course students with clear strength in certain subject domains may offer subjects at the normal academic course. And with such provision, it gives them a sense of achievement and increase their motivation to strive for success. At the secondary school level, additional support programs for students who still lag behind are made available all the way to the end of their secondary school education. In terms of provision, there's also provision of manpower, professional development as well as resources to schools so as to better implement these support programs for these students. But at the secondary level, we're dealing with a group of students that is different from the primary school peers. These students are in the age group of 13 to 16 and 17. So for this particular group of students, okay, they would need support in the form of improving the social emotional learning through stronger, positive teacher-student relationship, and also providing guidance on education and career guidance for post-secondary options. So therefore, our ministry supports schools by providing the comprehensive professional development in building teachers' capacity and equipping them with the necessary knowledge and skills, and strengthen also their social emotional competencies in order to perform their pastoral role effectively. We recognize the select talents of students in both the academic and non-academic arenas. For students with specific talents and abilities, there are the specialized independent schools in the areas of arts, sports, mathematics and science, as well as applied learning. For students who are more inclined towards hands-on and practical learning, there are also specialized schools to cater to such learning needs. Let me elaborate further on this aspect. To cater to different learning needs, the less academically inclined students are given a choice to select either the mainstream secondary schools offering normal technical course or specialized schools for the same course. So what is involved in the mainstream schools that offer the normal technical course? We have customized curriculum for the normal technical students, which are more hands-on and practice-oriented and include subjects like computer applications as well as elements of business studies. There are additional funding support for programs that offers an extension of their learning in class to more hands-on or applied learning contexts. This could be in modules in hospitality, science and technology, or other areas conducted out of school setting. So what about specialized schools that only offer normal technical course? There's provision of both academic and vocational qualifications, and the specialized schools for the normal technical course adopts a whole school approach in providing a customized learning environment to develop its students. They also work closely with the Institute of Technical Education and industry partners to develop vocational programs and provide attachment opportunities for their students. So taken collectively, such specialized schools for normal technical course emphasize on skill-based activities and practical learning in a real-world context or workplace setting. There are other kinds of specialized schools, okay, and there are certain schools, specialized schools for students who do not pass their primary school leaving examination. And these students can actually obtain the Institute of Technical Education Skills Certificate and progress to the Institute of Technical Education for further vocational training, undergo apprenticeship, or just seek employment thereafter. So what I have shared earlier are the kind of learning support structures not only given to the primary level, but also given to the secondary level. And at the secondary level, there is something distinctive about the provision, is that we focus also on the social, emotional support, because we're dealing with a group of students, because of their developmental age, they require that kind of support as compared to their younger peers at the primary level. So what other support do we provide for our primary and secondary level students? To ensure adequate resourcing of schools with teachers, we adopt the approach to deploy resources in a much more targeted way to support areas of greater educational needs. This allows schools to implement appropriate intervention strategies and provide greater support for low progress students and students with special learning needs. For instance, the leveling up programs, which I mentioned just now, like for English, okay, if done at primary 1 and primary 2, can be conducted in small groups of only about 8 to 10 students per lesson, okay, during pull-out classes. So besides looking at the resourcing of teachers, we also provide support to schools to strengthen the engagement and support for students. This includes counselors and student welfare officers who help students with school attendance issues and motivate them to return to schools. For students who are struggling with multiple issues and are unable to cope, they will be referred for intervention by the school counselor and to relevant external agencies to help support this group of students. All primary schools and many secondary schools are staffed with at least one allied educator in the area of learning and behavioral support to support students with mild educational needs and low progress students. We adopt a many helping hands approach in reaching out to our students who are at risk of dropping out from schools. We work with relevant agencies from the government, family service centers, community self-help groups, and voluntary welfare organizations that have relevant expertise and experience to provide targeted support for these students. Student care centers are set up in our primary schools to better care for our students, especially those from the disadvantaged homes. The in-house centers offer services such as meals, homework supervision, and games, and every primary school will be equipped with such a center by the end of 2020. At the post-secondary level, the more academically inclined students would opt for the pre-university education in the junior colleges. So these are the grade 11 and 12, okay? And for students who prefers a more practice-oriented training, they can opt for polytechnics, where they will be equipped with skills to contribute to the technological and economic development of Singapore. The curricular programs in these polytechnics are designed in close consultation with industry to meet market demands and requirements. For the less academically inclined students, they will proceed to the Institute of Technical Education, which aims to equip students with technical skills and knowledge to meet the workforce needs of the various industry sectors. They will receive usually a broad-based, multidisciplinary curriculum ranging from engineering to business and service skill areas in collaboration with industry partners. So do we offer learning support beyond secondary school? The answer is yes. Okay. So to support students who do not do well in their Singapore Cambridge General Certificate of Education normal level, or what we term as a GCEN level examination, they would be given an option to opt for a 3-year NITEC course instead of a 2-year NITEC course in the Institute of Technical Education, or ITE. Just like I said, the less academically inclined students would choose this pathway into a more receiving a more technical based or vocational based training. Okay, if they still do not do well, they would be given an option to do a 3-year rather than a 2-year program. So NITEC stands for the National ITE Certificate, and it's a certificate awarded by the Institute of Technical Education for students who graduated from our courses. So why do we put them through a 3-year program? The extra year is really to provide students not doing well, the extra year to give them the necessary literacy and numeracy training so that they will be able to do well subsequently in their NITEC courses. So in closing, I'd like to reiterate the following pointers. That is, our work in the Ministry of Education headquarters is important in ensuring our schools have the best condition to carry out their work in molding the future of our nation. I believe that undergirds all that we do is that each child is different and it's important. Education is a great social leveler and we want to bring out the best in everyone. And with this, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leslie To. I think Singapore's education development has always been inspiring, and I think we have different participants from different countries, and we all, I think, most of them are also moving, their education reform also moving toward building students the so-called 21st century skills. So we come to the Q&A session. So anyone have any question, please feel free to raise your hand. ตอนนี้เราก็คิดว่าน่าจะเป็นประโยชน์กับทุกท่านนะคะตอนนี้มีคำถามไหมคะ Okay, so I think we now come to Q&A. Okay, the lady, please.
ถามเป็นภาษาไทยเป็นข้อๆนะคะ
ได้ค่ะ
ข้อแรกนี่หมายถึงว่าที่ประเทศสิงคโปร์เนี่ยมีการจัดว่าการศึกษาภาคบังคับถึงระดับไหนหรือเปล่าคะ
In Singapore, do you have your basic education? In Thailand, for example, it have to be by law. Students have to be in school until grade 9. So about 15 years old. So in Singapore, this is the law that was a mandatory education when students have to be in the school.
Yes, there is a compulsory education where they need to receive at least of 10 years. Yeah.
10 years.
Yes.
About 10 ปีค่ะคือประมาณ10 ปี
ระดับชั้น
6 7 8 9 10ประมาณม .4 ของเขาถูกไหมคะม .4
ม .4
ใช่ประมาณม .4 ค่ะ
ค่ะ
แล้วที่สิงคโปร์เขาจะเป็นระบบอังกฤษเขาจะไม่ได้เหมือนกับเราเป๊ะๆนะคะค่ะ I'm talking about it's slightly different in Thailand because in Thailand our compulsory education is until 15 years old or grade 9. So that's slightly different from Singapore, and they told her that your education system is sort of collide with more British system. Yeah.
คำถามที่สองก็คือที่นู่นที่สิงคโปร์เนี่ยมีการแยกโรงเรียนว่าเป็นโรงเรียนของเด็กปกติหรือโรงเรียนของกิฟเต็ดเด็กกิฟเต็ดแล้วก็ที่มีพรสวรรค์นะคะแล้วก็เป็นของเด็กที่มีความต้องการพิเศษแยกออกเป็นโรงเรียนไหมคะหรือว่าเป็นการผสมรวมเรียนร่วมอะค่ะ
Do you follow the question?
With regard to the different kind of ability students, I think I get her question is she's asking if do we integrate students of different abilities or even special abilities together in the same setting, or do we actually have specialized schools for each of these different abilities? Okay, most students, would be found in the same school setting. For instance, most students would be what we're referring to the mainstream students. They'll be found in the school setting. And of course, there are certain schools, not every schools that offer gifted education. We do have gifted education, but they are not found in every school. Okay? Schools that offer gifted education would also receive the mainstream students as well. So there is that integration, or they are all learning within the same physical environment. As for students with special needs, we try to be inclusive as well, and students with mild needs, would also be found in mainstream schools. And of course, there would need to be certain resourcing as well as teachers to support this group of students with mild special needs in the mainstream schools. But of course, students with very severe special needs, they would be required to be educated in the special education schools, okay, because they requires not only curriculum adaptations but also support from paramedical professionals like the different therapists, psychologists, as well as social workers. So there's a differentiation in that sense for the very severe education needs students. Yes. I hope I answer your question.
อย่างเด็กออทิสติกแล้วก็ไม่ถึงว่าเรามีการแยกประเภทว่าถ้าเป็นออทิสติกหรือLD นะคะ learning disability เนี่ยหรือจะเป็นดาวน์ซินโดรมอะไรต่างๆเนี่ยอย่างเช่นออทิสติกเนี่ยจะมีการแยกประเภทออกไปหรือไม่อะไรเงี้ยนะคะหรือกลุ่มดาวกลุ่มLD อะค่ะหรืออื่นๆนะคะ
So yeah.
Her question is, if I may reiterate, is looking at that of autism as well as students with Down syndrome. Okay, spectrum of autism, and those with it depends on the assessment of the child. So if the autistic level is can be managed in the mainstream schools, I think being inclusive, we'll try to also have a student in the mainstream schools as well. But for those with very severe autism, I would think that they would need to be schooled in schools that looks after autistic students, okay, and or special needs schools. And also for Down syndrome, it will also require special education. And Down syndrome students are usually not found in the mainstream schools. They are usually sent to the schools with special needs. Yes.
ก็อาจจะลองสรุปขมวดประเด็นให้นะคะก็คือว่าคุณเลสลี่บอกว่าจริงๆสิงคโปร์เนี่ยก็พยายามที่จะเป็นพยายามที่จะให้มีเด็กทุกกลุ่มนะคะอยู่ในโรงเรียนเดียวกันนั่นแหละนะคะก็คือก็จะมีการคัดกรองเด็กก่อนนะคะว่าอย่างเช่นเป็นออทิสติกเนี่ยมีอยู่ช่วงไหนนะคะว่าเพราะฉะนั้นก็คือก็จะให้อยู่ในโรงเรียนนะคะขณะเดียวกันเนี่ยการอยู่ในโรงเรียนนี่ก็จะอยู่กับนักเรียนโดยรวมด้วยนะคะก็คือมีเป็นความพยายามของสิงคโปร์แต่ว่าการที่นักเรียนพิเศษเด็กพิเศษที่เราหมายถึงเนี่ยอยู่ในโรงเรียนเนี่ยก็จะมีตัวช่วยนะคะมีตัวช่วยเนี่ยเป็นครูหรือว่าเป็นนักจิตวิทยาอะไรต่างๆค่ะที่มาจากวิชาชีพอื่นที่จะมานักสังคมสงเคราะห์อะไรต่างๆเนี่ยค่ะก็จะมาช่วยอยู่ในโรงเรียนด้วยนะคะเพื่อให้เกิดการพัฒนาเด็กจะไม่ใช่แค่ครูจะไม่ทำงานเดี่ยวๆนะคะแต่จะมีอาชีพอื่นที่เหมือนกับตอบโจทย์หรือว่าช่วยเหลือเด็กกลุ่มเหล่านี้ได้ด้วยนะคะแต่ว่าเขาก็บอกว่าเขาเน้นไปที่เรื่องของการทำให้นักเรียนทุกคนเนี่ยเรียนร่วมกันได้นะคะในสิงคโปร์ค่ะ
อันนี้แล้วก็การส่งผ่านเช่นสมมติว่าเด็กออทิสติกที่มีการพัฒนาแล้วเนี่ยการส่งผ่านไปยังโรงเรียนอีกโรงเรียนหนึ่งมันจะมีขั้นตอนอะไรไหมคะที่ของประเทศสิงคโปร์เราต้องมีการสอบคัดเลือกหรืออะไรเหมือนของประเทศไทยเราหรือเปล่าอะไรเงี้ย
Okay. Once the autistic student graduate, how do you have any transfer system for students to go to different school or ใช่ไหมคะอาจารย์หมายถึงคำถามว่าไป transfer ไปไหนมันถึงไม่เข้า
อย่างเช่นสมมติว่าจบเขาบังคับเมื่อสักครู่ว่า10 ปีใช่ไหมคะแล้วก็สมมติว่าอย่างเช่นระดับประถมไปมัธยมจะต้องมีการสอบผ่านเข้าไปแล้วก็อย่างนั้นใช่หรือเปล่า
It's like a referral system that once they graduate from primary school and if they wanted to continue study in high school how system do that like you have for example you have a reporting going with student and then the student the new school you know the needs for example this is what she asked do you have supporting system
There are, because we have a centralized portal for students where the records of students will follow through to the subsequent schools because it's a centralized IT platform where the students' information will be computed into it and so it's a centralized accessibility in the sense that it can access across the different streams as a student progress to different institutions thereafter after primary school or things like that. Yes.
ก็อาจารย์ได้คำตอบแล้วนะคะคือว่าเขามีระบบสารสนเทศนะคะที่จะติดตามเด็กมีข้อมูลเด็กเพราะฉะนั้นเด็กไปเรียนต่อที่ไหนเนี่ยก็จะมีข้อมูลนี้ไปด้วยนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นการพัฒนามันก็จะสอดคล้องนะคะเดี๋ยวท่านไหนมีคำถามอื่นอีกไหมคะเชิญขอบคุณค่ะขอเชิญคุณครูผู้ชายค่ะ
ผมอาจารย์หลวงพระธิยกุลนะครับก่อนอื่นต้องขอชมวิทยากรนะครับว่าอธิบายและทำให้เข้าใจระบบการศึกษาของประเทศสิงคโปร์เนี่ยชัดเจนนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นหลักในเรื่องของหลักสูตรนะครับที่มันมี6 รายวิชาแล้วก็สมรรถนะหลัก5สมรรถนะนะครับแล้วก็ในเรื่องของการศึกษาการจัดการศึกษาแบบองค์รวมเนี่ยนะฮะทีนี้ผมมีคำถามอยู่2คำถามนะครับคำถามที่1เนี่ยก็คือว่ามีระบบการจัดครูนะครับที่เข้าไปสอนนะครับในลักษณะแบบการจัดศึกษาแบบองค์รวมเนี่ยอย่างไรเพราะว่าได้ทราบว่ามีมาตรฐานของต่างชาติเข้ามาด้วยเช่นอังกฤษเลยต่างๆเหล่านี้ใช้เฉพาะครูของสิงคโปร์อย่างเดียวหรือว่ามีครูต่างชาติเข้ามาช่วยด้วยนะครับอันนี้คำถามที่1นะครับคำถามที่2ก็คือว่าระบบการประเมินผลสำลิดของนักเรียนหรือผู้เรียนเนี่ยนะครับมีระบบการประเมินผลเนี่ยเฉพาะที่เกิดขึ้นจากในประเทศสิงคโปร์อย่างเดียวหรือว่ามีเอามาตรฐานของสากลเนี่ยเข้าไปเป็นส่วนหนึ่งของการประเมินผลสำลิดของผู้เรียนด้วยครับ
First question is how do you
screen teachers?
Yes, exactly. How you train teacher. For example, how you train teacher. Once you have a holistic approach to education, is this any, because I think it's quite a change, from mindset and also skill. So how do you actually train teachers?
Okay, in terms of training of teachers, there would be support, okay, from the ministry. In terms of because we do have specialized divisions that look into the training, what we term as the Academy of Singapore Teachers, that coordinate as well as roll out the training programs for teachers, and so in that way there is some centralized control over the kind of training or unified kind of training that teachers would receive for the curricular outcomes. Okay. And of course, there are this Academy of Singapore Teachers also supported by subject-specific institutions, what we term as we have things like the English Language Institute of Singapore, the Singapore Teachers, okay, Academy for the Arts, as well as Physical Education and Sports Teachers Academy. So taken together, this Academy of Singapore Teachers, as well as all these subject-specific kind of institutions, will allow teachers to be trained in a rather concerted effort. In that sense, there's concerted effort in training the teachers. So in that sense, equipping the teachers with a common mindset towards the teaching profession and what they need to do to achieve the curricular outcomes. Yeah, and of course, the ministry also work in closely with the National Institute of Education to provide further qualifications at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels, and that would, in a way, help to enhance the professionalism of the teachers.
ก็คือเหมือนอาจารย์ได้คำตอบนะคะก็คือเหมือนเขาทำทั้ง2ทางนะคะทั้งนักเรียนที่กำลังจะเข้ามาเป็นครูเนี่ยในมหาวิทยาลัยเองเนี่ยเขาก็มีการฝึกนะคะแล้วใส่เรื่องนี้เข้าไปนะคะเป็นเรื่องของการเรียนการสอนที่จะเข้าไปกับครูปัจจุบันเนี่ยเขาก็มีสถาบันที่พัฒนาครูอยู่นะคะแล้วก็ขณะเดียวกันเนี่ยเขาก็เอาความเชี่ยวชาญจากด้านต่างๆเช่นโรงเรียนAcademy ทางด้านศิลปะอะไรต่างๆเนี่ยค่ะเข้ามาแล้วก็ร่วมกันทำงานนะคะนี่คือเป็นแนวทางของสิงคโปร์คำถามที่1นะคะ
มีการใช้ครูชาวต่างชาติไหมครับ
Do you in Singapore do you also have foreign teachers that are in your education system? Do you have foreign teachers?
Yes, we do. Yeah. We do have Chinese language teachers from Republic of China, and they do the Chinese language teaching. Yes.
ก็เป็นภาษาต่างประเทศนะคะที่มีเช่นภาษาจีนนะคะมีครูต่างชาติเป็นคนภาษาจีนค่ะ
But to add on to the professionalism of teachers, we also have work attachments. We also encourage teachers to take on work attachments to other industries outside of the school system so that they can bring back the experience back to schools to enhance the teaching and learning of their students. So in a sense, they don't just stay isolated within classroom, but they have outside exposure to industries and they bring back novel ideas into the teaching fraternity.
ค่ะก็อีกอันหนึ่งรูปแบบหนึ่งที่เขาเน้นก็คือว่าเขาให้ครูเนี่ยได้ไปอยู่กับภาคเอกชนนะคะหรือว่าภาคผู้ประกอบการด้วยเพื่อให้รับประสบการณ์แล้วก็เอามาใช้ในห้องเรียนนะคะนี่คำถามแรกนะคะ the second question from him is that when you talk about student learning's outcome how you access that
Specifically which area
okay, so when you talk about students' learning outcome, how you measure or access students' outcome, and whether this learning student outcome that you've been using is aligned with some international standard that you have looked at.
Okay, I think in terms of assessment, if we look at the primary school, I think in recent years, in order to inculcate that joy or instill that joy of learning in the primary level students, at the lower primary, we actually face away with formal assessment. And so in primary 1 and primary 2, what we are reporting to parents is the holistic development of a child rather than the grades that the child achieved in the different subject disciplines. So that we do not pressurize both the parents and child into doing well for the different assessment. So that's for primary 1 and primary 2. Of course, from primary 3 onwards, there would be both as formal and informal assessment. Okay, what we term as the formative and summative assessment, which is done on a regular basis. Summative usually done year end. Okay, and these are usually school-based. Okay, and of course, at the primary 6, at the end of the 6th year education, we have the national level examination, which is what I shared earlier, the primary school leaving examination. That is to ascertain how much they have acquired over the 6 years of education and what is the progression they should have after primary school, whether they should be going into the express course or going into normal academic or normal technical courses. So that is the primary school leaving examination. That is very much a Singapore examination system to allow us to ascertain appropriately what is the kind of course the students should embark after their primary school education. Then of course, in the secondary school and the pre-university, there's also that infusion or usage of both formative and summative assessment, like what is done in primary school. But of course, there is that national exam where we work with the Cambridge exam syndicate. That's why we call it as a Singapore Cambridge, okay, general certificate, where we work with the Cambridge examiners to, and this is done at secondary 4, which is grade 10, as well as grade 12. Okay, so that is more of an international teaching, if I may say that. Yeah.
ก็อาจจะลองสรุปให้นะคะอาจารย์ก็คือว่าค่ะคุณเล็กค่ะคุณเล็กซี่ก็บอกว่าในเรื่องของการประเมินผลของสำลิดของนักเรียนเนี่ยค่ะคือป .1 ถึงป .2 เนี่ยยังไม่มีการให้เกรดนะคะก็คือจะเป็นการรายงานผลแบบองค์รวมค่ะว่าเด็กพัฒนาเป็นยังไงทักษะเป็นยังไงเนี่ยไม่มีการให้เกรดนะคะแต่ว่าจะเริ่มมีทั้งผสมผสานค่ะคือการสอบด้วยนะคะแล้วก็การให้เป็นข้อมูลนะคะของเด็กด้วยเนี่ยก็คือช่วงตั้งแต่ป .3 ไปนะคะแล้วก็ป .6 เนี่ยก็จะเริ่มมีการสอบวัดแล้วว่าความรู้6ปีของเด็กเนี่ยเป็นยังไงนะคะแล้วก็เพื่อที่จะเอาข้อมูลไปวิเคราะห์ด้วยว่าพอเด็กจบป .6 เนี่ยจะไปสายวิชาการหรือว่าจะไปสายอาชีพดีอะไรนะคะคือเป็นการประเมินเด็กเบื้องต้นนะคะนี่คือช่วงป .6 อาจารย์ถามว่าแล้วใช้มาตรฐานต่างประเทศไหมก็คือช่วงมัธยมอาจารย์ช่วงมัธยมเนี่ยจะเริ่มมีเรื่องของการสอบเนี่ยโดยใช้ระบบต่างประเทศเข้ามาที่เขาเรียกว่า Cambridge ของมหาวิทยาลัย Cambridge เข้ามานะคะก็อันนี้ก็คือเป็นในส่วนของเรื่องของการประเมินผลนะคะค่ะมีคำถามอีกไหมคะ any more questions They said no, my child is better, or they have done better, but you have any problem with the student report? Yeah.
You mean
the outcome? Yeah. like by the end of once they finish each semester, the report, right? You send to parent. Do you have any problem?
Okay, probably I talk from my own personal experience as a teacher. I've been a grade 11 and grade 12 biology teacher, and I think during my stint in school, I think parents would actually accept, so long as there is and they're willing to accept the student's performance, so long as there is good communication between the teacher and the parent, and making the teacher as parent understand how we can work together in this close relationship to better the performance of a child, because the child performance does not only relies on the academic outcomes but also the entire development of a child. So there must be that close coordination between the school and the parents or the family, so that there is a holistic development of a child. Yeah.
ค่ะก็คำถามนะคะก็คือบอกว่าจริงๆเนี่ยตัวคุณเลสลี่เองเนี่ยเป็นครูชีววิทยาด้วยนะคะเคยสอนม.5 ม.6 นะคะเคยเป็นครูมาก่อนเนี่ยก็พูดจากประสบการณ์ของตัวเองเนี่ยก็คิดว่าผู้ปกครองก็ไม่มีปัญหานะคะเพราะว่าถ้ามีการสื่อสารที่ดีต่อกันนะคะแล้วก็ขณะเดียวกันเนี่ยเรื่องของการทำงานเรื่องผลการเรียนเด็กเนี่ยมันไม่ได้ขึ้นอยู่กับว่าคะแนนสอบอย่างเดียวแต่มันคือทั้งเรื่องอื่นด้วยนะของเด็กนะคะทั้งชีวิตอะไรต่างๆเนี่ยบุคลิกอะไรต่างๆเพราะฉะนั้นน่ะการทำงานระหว่างพ่อแม่กับผู้ปกครองแล้วก็ครูนะคะเด็กด้วยเนี่ยสำคัญก็จะทำงานร่วมกันแล้วก็สื่อสารให้ตรงกันนะความเข้าใจตรงกันเพราะฉะนั้นก็จะไม่มีปัญหาเรื่องนี้นะคะอันนี้คือของคุณเลสลี่ค่ะก็คิดว่าน่าจะใกล้ถึงเวลาหมดเวลาสำหรับเซสชันนี้นะคะท่านไหนมีคำถามไหมคะว่าถ้าเกิดไม่ถามเนี่ยจะนอนไม่หลับกลับบ้านไม่ถูกอะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะมีไหมคะอาจจะมีอีกคำถามหนึ่งก็ได้นะคะมีไหมคะมีอาจารย์อีกท่านหนึ่งก็ได้เชิญค่ะท่านเดียวนะคะท่านสุดท้าย
ครับทราบข่าวว่าเงินเดือนของครูสิงคโปร์นี่มากที่สุดในอาเซียนใช่ไหมครับเดี๋ยวเราต้องถาม
I would say that Singapore payment, government payment to the teachers, to the education fraternity is very much based on our qualifications, because there are certain level of qualifications for acceptance into the teaching fraternity, and it will be paid according. If you're talking about starting salary, it's paid according to the qualification that one attains, and thereafter it depends on the grade level that you are promoted to, and that will in a way matches the salary will match that of the grade level. Yeah.
ก็เงินเดือนสิงคโปร์ก็มีหลายปัจจัยนะคะอาจารย์ไม่ได้มีเรื่องปัจจัยเดียวมีทั้งเรื่องของเรื่องคุณวุฒิทางการศึกษาด้วยนะคะความสามารถด้วยนะคะแล้วก็มารวมกันเนี่ยถึงจะเป็นเงินเดือนนะคะค่ะก็คิดว่าเราน่าจะเต็มอิ่มนะคะกับเรื่องของการศึกษาของสิงคโปร์นะคะว่าเราได้เห็นว่าเขาเนี่ยมีการทำงานเนี่ยอย่างไรนะคะเราก็ได้แรงบันดาลใจนะคะได้วิธีการด้วยแนวคิดนะคะว่าตอนนี้สิงคโปร์เขาไปในเรื่องไหนอยู่นะคะแล้วก็ทิศทางเป็นยังไงซึ่งจริงก็สอดคล้องกับหลายๆประเทศที่เรานั่งอยู่ในวันนี้ด้วยนะคะเราเห็นมีคุณครูต่างชาติอยู่นี้ด้วยก็คิดว่าทุกคนน่ะก็อยากจะมุ่งไปที่พัฒนาให้เด็กเนี่ยมีเรื่องของทักษะในศตวรรษที่21อย่างที่คุณเลสลี่ได้ย้ำมาก่อนนะคะว่าอันนี้ก็คือเป็นแนวทางที่เราก็อยากมุ่งไปให้ถึงเหมือนกันเราก็ได้เรียนรู้จากประเทศเพื่อนบ้านของเรานะคะ Mr. Leslie thank you very much for your very interesting and valuable presentation we are I think all of us we are very appreciative and it's really useful.
ครับต้องขอบพระคุณทั้งสองท่านเป็นอย่างยิ่งนะครับคือท่านวิทยากรที่มาจากประเทศสิงคโปร์แล้วก็คุณทันธิดานะครับเป็นสมาชิกของมูลที่รางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหาจักรีนะครับในโอกาสนี้นะครับทางมูลที่ขอเรียนเชิญท่านดร.วาสนาเลิศศิลป์ท่านกรรมการวิชาการมูลที่รางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหาจักรีนะครับได้มอบของที่ระลึกให้วิทยากรและโมเดเลเตอร์ของเราในวันนี้นะครับท่านแรกนะครับขอเรียนเชิญมิสเตอร์เลสลี่ทนนะครับครับเรียนเชิญครับขอเสียงปรบมือหน่อยนะครับครับขอบคุณมิสเตอร์เลลิสทุนมากนะครับคุณทันธิดาวงประสงค์นะครับ นะครับคุณนันทิดาก็เป็นคณะอนุกรรมการฝ่ายต่างประเทศของมูลที่รางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหาจักรีนะครับก็ถือว่าเป็นลูกหลานของคนไทยอีกคนหนึ่งนะครับที่ทำงานในระดับนานาชาตินะครับขอบพระคุณมากนะครับครับผมก็ช่วงนี้น่าจะเรียบร้อยสำหรับเซสชันพิเศษนะครับตรงนี้เป็นสเปเชียลจริงๆนะครับนอกจากคุณครูที่เป็นครูรางวัลสมเด็จเจ้าฟ้ามหาจักรีทั้ง11ท่านแล้วนะครับเซสชันในช่วงนี้เนี่ยทั้ง5ห้องนะครับทำให้เราได้รู้ว่าประเทศในอาเซียนไปถึงไหนกันแล้วนะครับเราโชคดีที่ได้เข้าห้องสิงคโปร์เนื่องจากว่าเป็นแบบอย่างของการศึกษาชั้นนำระดับโลกนะครับถ้าเราไปดูผลการสอบไม่ว่าจะเป็นพิซซ่านะครับที่เป็นการสอบแข่งขันในระดับสากลเนี่ยเขาอยู่แนวหน้านะครับเทคนิคต่างๆวันนี้ทุกคำถามก็ต้องขอบพระคุณนะครับทุกท่านที่เข้ามาฟังในห้องนี้หวังว่าน่าจะนำไปใช้ให้เกิดประโยชน์กับทุกๆท่านนะครับเพราะความคาดหวังก็คือเครือข่ายครู